friends. I'm your host, Erin Port, and welcome to the Simple Purposeful Living podcast. Life can be overwhelming and busy, so once a week, I invite you to join me, and together we will make simple tweaks to uncomplicate the hard parts of our life so we can spend more time doing what we love. Welcome back to the Simple Purposeful Living podcast. I'm your host, Erin, and today is one of your favorite podcast episodes I do every season. So today's episode is the Spring Ask Me Anything, and we're going to dive right into all of your burning questions. You guys had a lot of really good ones, so if I don't get to them all, I'll use them as content in the next couple of weeks, but let's get started. So the first question today is, when is your next trip? Where are you headed? And any plans to go back to Europe to see your sister? Okay, so we went to Florida for spring break, and this summer my parents have a lake house, and so we really try to prioritize going to the lake as much as we can. Everybody in my family loves it. It's about 3 hours and 45 minutes away, so it's not something that we do every single weekend because it's a bit of a trek, but we try to go at least once a month. And then in August, my parents will be gone for a week, and so we will go, just the family of 6, for the entire week, and we'll be there. So we're super excited about that and just getting away, but still having all the perks of the lake place. So we will do that. And then we actually just booked a cruise for next spring break. I booked like 13 months in advance because I have learned with a large family. I know some of you don't think a family of 6 is large, but it can be a little trickier, especially with like cruises and overseas travel, which just make it a little more difficult because like a stateroom on a cruise ship only holds 4. A lot of families in Europe are a lot smaller. So I booked these in advance. And so Solon is a freshman. I've mentioned this many times, but it's Scott and I, when we went away in October to Las Vegas for a couple of days, we tend to plan vacations when we're on vacation, which I think is actually really common. I think it helps with the sting of like, okay, I'm on this vacation. I want something else to look forward to. But anyway, we just kind of sat down and we're like, where do we want to take our kids before Solon graduates? And with him being in sports and the girls being in dance and all the things, like there's limited opportunities where we can get away. And so we were like, okay, we want to be really intentional about like planning out where we want to go. And this is kind of from my side of the family. I grew up this way. Like my parents, we just got the email that said that like with their 6-month like calendar, so we know where they are and where they're traveling to. But anyway, so we are going on a Caribbean cruise as a family next year, and then we still hope to get to Italy before Solon graduates. That's kind of on our list too. It is on our list. And if Ellen is still there, of course, we will see her. Right now, they're planning on being there. They don't have any plans to move home. So and somebody asked how we budget for travel. So travel is definitely high on our list. And so we put money away every month for savings. If we, get a bonus or we get, we haven't gotten a refund, but like anything like that, we will just put into savings, and that goes right to our vacation fund. And we sacrifice in other areas. We don't spend as much on, miscellaneous stuff. And also our kids, we don't do as much for like physical gifts at birthdays and Christmas. We have a smaller budget for that, just knowing that our vacations are kind of the gift for them. My grandparents kind of set the tone for this. When I was a little kid, they never got us birthday gifts or Christmas gifts, but they would take us on like a little road trip. They didn't have a lot of money, but they would do this instead. And when my grandfather died, all of the cousins talked about it. So I just know it's such a legacy that we can give them. So and travel is one of our favorite things to do as a family. It just reconnects us, helps us to just find our footing again. So there's that. Okay. I got so many questions on my sister. I texted her and was like, everybody wants to know, are you okay? And she would have you all know that she's great. So for those of you that don't know, my sister Ellen and her family live in Luxembourg, and she had twins 18 months ago. So my niece will be 7 in May. She's 1 year younger than Quincy. And then she has twin 18-month-olds. And so she just found and she's been very transparent with this online, but she had postpartum depression after her oldest was born, and she just started to feel that pull again. And so she was like, you know what? Social media really aggravates depression and anxiety in her. She started to find herself comparing a lot, just not being very present, being irritable. And she's like, I can just remove that and see how it goes. And so she was just going to be offline for like a month. And then she realized like it really helped her. So I don't think she has any plans to come back online anytime soon. Like she just feels like it's taken the pressure off of her as a mom. And so I don't know. I think she'd want you all to know that if you are feeling the pressure as a mom, or you're feeling anxious, or you're feeling like you're comparing all the time, or you're, to just remove yourself from social media. I think that's really helpful. I tell people all the time, I'm on social media for work. I'm actually not on social media personally. Like, I do not get on my personal Facebook page. I do not get on my personal Instagram. Um, I just find it's really helpful for me as well. So there's a little caveat. But Ellen is doing really well. The twins are doing great. Her big girl's doing great. They're traveling to Spain in May to see my brother-in-law's family, and they're going to travel home at Thanksgiving. We're all meeting in Florida. It's a little easier for them to get to. And speaking of my grandparents who gifted us the love of travel as a kid, we're going to where they always took us every Thanksgiving when we were kids. So we're going back. We haven't been back since my grandfather passed away, and so it's kind of a bit of a reunion, and we're really looking forward to it. But she's doing well. You didn't misplace her handle. She's not online. Okay, so the next question, where do you shop for your kids' clothes? Oh my goodness. Kids' clothes are so hard. And my kids are so picky. They get it from me, full transparency. I'm super picky too. And I just feel like it's really hard right now. But for our oldest, Solon, he's 15, going to be 16 in August. He wears a lot of school spirit clothing. Okay, so a friend of mine clued me into this trick that anytime the school has a spirit wear, sign up to buy him a t-shirt and a sweatshirt. First of all, his coaches really like that they wear school spirit in the locker room and in the weight room. Well, he has weights every single day. So pretty much he just needs to wear red and black every day anyway. So this works to my advantage. So if you have a teenager who wants to wear that kind of stuff, I would just take that tip. Buy a sweatshirt and a t-shirt anytime. And I actually do that for Quincy, and Vera likes to do that as well. They just like those school spirit wear. We have a lot of school spirit. I don't know if it's a smaller school district or just that we have kids that are older now, but we have a lot of school spirit wear in our house these days. For Solon, we also do a lot of Target. He really likes that All in Motion brand, so we get his shorts there. I do a lot of American Eagle because they do, he's long and lean. And so they do extended sizing. So they have joggers that are extra long. So for pants, I do a lot of American Eagle. And then for dress clothes, he really likes J. Crew Factory. So we do a lot of that. And they have matching styles. And him and Quincy, I think it's the cutest thing ever. They actually like to match. I know. But they do, and it's the cutest thing ever. We get so many comments at church or wherever we go when they wear their matching lobster shirts. So that's where I get his dress clothes. So Quincy, similar, Target for shorts. He gets a lot of hand-me-downs from his cousin, so that's really helpful. And then like athletic shirts, I get at TJ Maxx a lot of times. When Solon was little, I did a lot of like same thing, like Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, all that kind of stuff. I'll get at TJ Maxx for a really good price. You just have to go early in the season, but they tend to have some great options. Lucille, she's kind of just wherever we can find something. She found some things at the Nike outlet recently, Gap, the Gap outlet, Target, Athleta. All of my kids, they have probably a smaller wardrobe than a lot of their friends. I kind of taught them from a very early age that if it's not a heck yes, then it's a no. And so we'll be in the dressing room and I'm like, if you don't love it and you're not going to wear it, we're not going to buy it. And they've gotten that kind of under in their head. And so, like I said, they're extremely picky. Which means I'm willing to spend a little bit more if they're going to wear it all the time. So she has a couple of Athleta sweatshirts she's worn the the like till they're threadbare basically, and good quality. And Vera even had some things that she passed down to Lucille that then we can pass down to my niece or some neighbors and friends that are here locally. So I feel good about that. And then Vera, she's also long and lean. She's very petite, and so Lululemon. I know you're all like, ugh, I know. She shops there for pants and shorts because I can get them in a sorry about that, longer length. And so that's just helpful. But it is crazy. She's very, very lean and the sizing at Lululemon makes me want to scream sometimes for body image for girls, but that's neither here nor there. Okay. So there's where you go. Okay, we're gonna get into it. This question, I was like, I don't want to answer, but also it is so common and something I have chatted about with my friends in real life. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna answer it on the podcast because I think it's really important. So, how do you prioritize intimacy with your spouse in a house full of teenagers? Okay, so I've talked with my friends about this because not only do we have teenagers in this house, we also have little kids, which means the teenagers stay up and the little kids get up early, which makes it really challenging. Um, and we've just had to get really creative. We've had to have lots of communication between Scott and I. I also deal with anxiety. And so for me, too, I have learned, my counselor has helped me to realize that for me to be able to relax and enjoy, I have to be like, it's harder for me as somebody who deals with anxiety than for other people. And I thought I was broken in that for a long time, but that's really helped me as well. Um, but we've also, one of the tricks is to flip the script on timing. It doesn't always have to be in the evenings. Intimacy can be, maybe in the mornings, lunch hours, afternoons. Sometimes Scott will work from home, and so we're both working from home. So just kind of thinking outside the box there. I think a great tweak that a friend shared with me is to always keep your bedroom door closed. Our kids keep their bedroom doors closed. We keep our bedroom door closed. And so then there's like that boundary of like knocking and giving that respect before you walk in. And if you're not doing that now, I think that that's just a great tweak to make is like just start closing your door. Um, Partly it's because I have teenagers that I'm getting dressed and I don't always want them to barge in and they want that same respect. So we've kind of just established that like the door is closed, you need to knock first. You can't just barge in. Same with the little kids. And then embrace the lock, of course. I'm always like, is the door locked? So there's that. But I think it's important for kids to do that. And I think that's really, really helpful. I have another friend who they just capitalize when their kids are gone, like everybody's at youth group or they're out with their friends and then I just think, again, if I could just tell you to communicate, 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 and that remember, like, to lower the pressure. I think this is really important. This has helped me with somebody who deals with anxiety is it doesn't have to be an all-out event every time. Small, consistent moments of connection matter just as much. Even like hugging, kissing, flirting around the house. It sets the tone for emotional and physical connection. I've even had friends that say they schedule it so they kind of know, so they have it, they can prepare. Anyway, those would be my tips. I do think it's really important. We can tell when that hasn't happened, it affects our marriage and our relationship. So we prioritize it. We try to make it happen. Does it happen as frequently? Probably not. It just depends on the week based on what the kids are doing. We do. I go to bed before the big kids, so it is always a little tricky. So there's that. Whew! Sweating. I told Scott I was going to talk about it. And I also told my teens because, honestly, here's the thing. They're friends and them listen, so I need to make sure that they're okay with it as well. But I do think it's okay. We have very honest conversations with our kids about that because I think it's been so taboo that then it almost feels like taboo as an adult to talk about it. So let's normalize that. And just if you want more information, I think it's called Sex Chats for Christian Women is a podcast that my counselor recommended. So FYI, there's that too. Because I feel like a lot of times we don't talk about it and then people are suffering or they're like struggling and they have, so just let's normalize communicating. It's just not always on the internet. Okay. What is your best encouragement for handling a really difficult season? Okay, so I talked about this on the last podcast. I go back to episode 100 where I talk about kind of that season of life where I felt like I was drowning. I just got a comment online this morning from somebody in a DM that was like, must be nice that you can have such a simple life. It doesn't work that way for everyone. And let me just tell you, like, those ones always hit a little bit hard for me because I never want people to think that my life is simple. I think my vantage point has always been that we're all walking around with invisible luggage. There's just a lot of stuff we can't talk about online. I was just reading in the book Nothing to Prove by Jenny Allen. There's a difference between vulnerability and transparency. And vulnerability is kind of like this curated story that we can share publicly or maybe with like not our closest friends because our stories don't always just involve us. And then there's this level of transparency where you can get to with like really close friends. And I shared something with somebody the other day and they had no idea we were struggling with it. And I was like, well, yeah, because it's not my story to share. I can't share it publicly without disclosing somebody else's story, right? But it doesn't mean that we're not struggling. So I would just say when I'm in seasons of really difficulty, I ask for prayer. I am just really honest. I've gotten really honest. I feel like asking for prayer is like a humbling experience to just like say to your friends, like, I can't do this on my own. I'm struggling. I need you to pray for me. And it has been so encouraging to have people pray over me. I love being able to pray over people. So I would say that. I would say the tweaks is where I like if you go back to listen to episode 100, I talk a lot about like that's where I realized that a tweak was really what I need because there's a lot out of your control in a really difficult season. But what is like a tiny tweak that you can make? Can you brew yourself a cup of coffee? Can you go to bed 15 minutes early? Can you make sure that you're getting out for a walk just to like clear your mind and help your heart? Some of those things really helped me. So just asking yourself, like, how can I make it a little easier on myself? How can I give myself a little bit of grace? Is there a tweak I can make? I think that's really helpful. And just know when you say the word season, I think too, we feel like seasons are going to last forever, but reminding ourselves of like past seasons that were hard that we came out of. Um, they do come and go. They might not be as fast as we'd like, but just knowing that this season won't last forever, I think is really helpful. And again, like one of the things I do is I'll look back on past seasons, like when Quincy first came home and we were drowning in like him not being able to eat or gain weight or get healthy. And I look at him now and look at him like he's thriving. Like I thought that season was never going to end. And so that looking back on that season helps me to remember that in a difficult season now, there's hope because it's not always going to be like that. Okay, I hope that helps. Remember to start small. Brain dump is so helpful because when we have a lot going on our mind, it just brain dumping is really helpful. Like I said, focusing on what you control, asking for help, delegating, and make sure you listen to last week's episode. Okay, next question. How do you offer advice without sounding pushy? I went over all these questions with my teens last night and my seventh grader just laughed because they're always like, thanks for the advice, mom. And I always tell them, I'm like, it comes with the price of admission as a mom. Like, I just, like, we always will joke, like, I'll say something and I'm like, I am required by the law to share this as your mother. And they just smile, right? So, um, but I think one of the things when I always try to come in it as like a big sister, like energy, cheerleader energy with like encouragement and, of like, hey, I've been there. And I think that the reason I come in with that is because that's what I need. I always think about how what I would want to be talked to when I'm in a season where I'm overwhelmed or I'm like stressed out or, maybe I'm not doing what I should be or whatever is like taking it back to like what would encourage me to make change. Condemnation, pointing the finger at me, yelling at me, those things aren't really going to help me. But if somebody shares their personal story with me of like, hey, I've been there, this is what happened, this is how it felt, you're not alone. I think so often if we can just tell people like, hey, I've been there, this is what worked for me, not what someone should do. It's it's more of like here's something that helped me than saying like you should try this. I think that just those if you even like listen to those two things, one sounds better to us than the other. And you'll find on the podcast I do that a lot. Like, hey, this is what works for me. Take what you need and get rid of the rest. Like that's always my goal with simple purposeful living is take what you need and let go of the rest, right? And then I would ask a lot of questions. My kids tell me I'm like the queen of questions. I was an instructional coach in my previous career and learned how to ask questions because here's the thing I've learned, and I learned through that training is that when you ask questions and the other person can answer, generally the change is going to be better because they're going to come to the conclusion on their own because we all have this knee-jerk reaction of wanting to figure it out on our own. But if you can ask questions to help them get to that. So I was in a counseling session the other day and my counselor's really good at this. She's like, why can't you let this go? And then, I said something and she's like, well, why do you feel that way? I mean, she just kept asking questions until finally we got to the root of what was going on. And I was like, oh my gosh. And if she had told me, like, hey, this is what you've got going on, I don't think it would have had the same visceral reaction. I don't think I would have remembered it the same. I don't think the change would have been as transformational. So that's what I'd suggest. Share stories, your own personal experience. Here's something that helped me asking lots of question. What feels hard right now? Do you want vent? I think the other thing too, sometimes I'll say to Scott, like, I don't want any ideas. I just want to vent. Do you want vent or do you want ideas? Lots of time to listen and let them just process because sometimes processing just allows them to figure it out. And then remembering how you'd want somebody to approach you. I think it's a great question. Okay, next question, which I thought was fun. What made you give your life to God? So, I grew up in a traditional Christian environment, more of like a Catholic Episcopalian environment, where we would go to church occasionally. We moved a lot every 2 years, and so it was just really hard to get involved in church because you're constantly. It was hard to get involved in anything, let's be honest, because you're there for 2 years and you're gone. Um, but I share this in my book, but my aunt died when I was 18 as a freshman in college. And my parents were also living in New York during 9/11. And so that was really hard too. And I was a freshman in college in 2001. And so um, those things combined, being away at college, being away from my family for the first time, my parents living in New York during 9/11, my aunt passing away of leukemia, really suddenly, leaving behind a 3 and a 1-year-old, really put into perspective, like, what is life all about? And how could a good God let bad things happen? And am I sure that I'm going to heaven when I die? And we were in premarital counseling, and my pastor said to me, Erin, do you know without a shadow of a doubt if you were to die today where you'd be headed? And I was like, I think heaven. And he's like, what if I could assure you that you'd go to heaven? And he shared the gospel with me that Jesus died on the cross for my sins. And I was a fairly goody two shoes all throughout. And so honestly, I didn't really understand that we were all sinners in need of a savior. I really was just like, I don't want to go to hell. I want to go to heaven. And so it was actually 19 years ago that I asked Jesus into my heart. And it was as simple as like, in that moment, I prayed and I was like, Jesus, I don't want to be scared of dying anymore because I was so scared of dying after watching so much grief that year. And I just really wrestled with it for the next 4 years because in 2001 is when my aunt died and I got saved in 2005. So anyway, it's been obviously a sanctification process ever since. I've learned a lot, grown a lot, changed, developed. I'm still learning and growing and realizing I need a savior every single day, probably more than now than I did then. But I'm so glad that I have Jesus on my side. I always say that Jesus was the tiniest tweak I ever made with the biggest and most profound impact on my life. So, a simple purposeful living is for all people, but my faith definitely drives me. I simple purposeful living, I believe, was like is a gift from God for me to steward well. And so I always pray every day that I can steward what He's given me to honor Him and serve those that I get to I get to talk to. So anyway, there's that question. I thought that was good. Okay. Next question. What's your biggest change since you started walking and how do you keep motivated to do it daily? Okay, so it's a rhythm, and I think we talk a lot about routines and systems, and if you can just make it part of your routine, it gets easier. So like I always tell people to make it as easy as possible to do the items. So when I first started walking, I would not come home after dropping off my kids. I would take my phone and my headphones and I would just park somewhere in my little small town and I'd walk. Because if I came home when I started, I would get distracted. So I would just go and I'd walk my 30 minutes and then I'd drive home. Well, this year I'm in a better habit, so I don't need to do that all the time, but it's just part of my rhythm. I put it in my calendar every single day as a to-do list item, and I am very driven by crossing things off the list. So if walk is on there, well, by golly, I'm going to do it. Now, does that mean I do the same amount every single day? No. And I'm strategic in that. It just says walk. It doesn't say 2 mile walk or whatever. Just because if it's a 5 minute walk, I can cross it off the list. But I have found more than anything, more than any physical changes, I've never really worked out for like I want to be fit and strong and healthy for my kids. That's why I talked about that on the podcast with my trainer. Like I just want to be strong for them. I want it to be easy to get my groceries out of the car. I want it to be easy to be able to get up and down the bleachers so I can watch my kids play. Like I want to be able to be limber enough to be the mom and the friend and the wife I want to be, and be able to do all that God has called me to do. But I would say for walking, it's just as much about my mental health, if not more. Like, and I can even tell like my digestion if I don't eat, if I don't walk for a day, I can just tell I'm off. Um, I just feel more at peace. There's times where I'm like walking with like no outside influence. Like I'm not listening to a Marco Polo. I'm not listening to a podcast. I'm just outside taking some deep breaths, getting in that sunlight. It really helps. So, it just helps, especially if I'm feeling irritable. I've actually started something new in this season because we're super our schedule's super full from 3 to 8 p.m. So I've actually, since I work from home, there's not always an like a good hard stop. And if my work bleeds into when my kids get home, I'm not my best version of myself because I'm trying to do work and I'm trying to mom and it's not going well. So I've been trying to set a timer where I can at least walk for 5 minutes before the kids get off the bus. That way it's like my commute because I was finding I didn't have a commute and then it was just like boom, I go from work to home or I'm trying to do both at the same time and it's just not great. So that's a little tweak I've made recently too that's been really helpful. Okay. Um, I loved this question too. How do you carve out quality time with each of your kids? I've talked a lot about this with my sister because she had one kiddo and then she went from one to three kids, and she had so much guilt that she couldn't give her older daughter what she used to give. And I always remind her, first of all, your kids, this like having siblings and sharing and all of those things is so good for them. My counselor told me the other day it's okay for our kids not to know that the world revolves around them. Like there's other people. And so I'm still learning this, right? Because I still feel like if I don't show up to their event, I don't love them. And she was like, that's not true. So I want to give that encouragement to you. Like, A, I'm still learning. And B, if you don't do quality time every single day with your kids or all the time with your kids, or if it's not a big gesture, you still love your kids. Like she was reminding me, like, you're making food for them, you're washing their clothes, you're creating a safe and balanced environment for them. All those things create a love and nurturing environment, right? And the other thing I tell my sister often is our motherhood and our love is not defined in 24-hour increments or 7-day increments. It's over the long haul. And so often in motherhood, we can say to ourselves, like, I didn't spend time with my kids today, or I didn't spend time with my kids over this week, or whatever. And I would say with 4 kids, I am very intentional about using time one on one with them in the little pockets of time. So, like, I drive my 2 little kids to school every morning, and I get to pray with them on the way to school, and we get to talk to each other. And so that's time with the two of them. And then Quincy hops out, and I have like another 5 minutes with Lucille all by herself. And so we get to just chat, and I'll ask her questions. I'm just really intentional about when the kids are in the car to like spend time with them. I know some days you're just exhausted and you want to turn on the music and sing along, but then maybe just let them be the DJ or whatever. But I think using those pockets of time, the snuggles in the morning, my 2 littles always come into our room in the morning while I'm doing my quiet time. And we spend a few minutes, they just sit with me and snuggle with me. And sometimes I'll ask some questions, but just that connection. And then my big kids, they tuck me in at night. So they'll come in, same. Some nights they'll like sit and chat with me. And some nights they'll just say good night and give me a hug. But just those little routines of connection one on one with them, I think is important. I always ask them, I stole this question from my therapist, but I always ask each one of them every day, what was something good from today? Just so that, I'm asking them a question. It oftentimes leads to conversations. Like the other day, I learned Lucille formed a girls' football team at school, and she was the coach on Mondays, and just fun things like that that I wouldn't hear about otherwise. But I think sometimes the simplest moments are the ones they'll remember the most. You don't have to divide yourself evenly, and you just have to be present when you can. So quality isn't always about quantity, it's about intentionality. And I really do think you're doing better than you think. Give yourself credit for the tiny, quiet ways you show up every single day. Okay. One other thing I'd say is try to enter their world and learn about what they love. So my friend Katie last night took her daughter to Sephora, and she let her pick out blush for Katie, the mom. And I just love that. I loved how she like let her daughter kind of like she entered into her daughter's world. She's like, I don't love Sephora, but I went for her. And then she was like, hey, can you use your expertise? And you remember Vera gave me a makeover. I think just entering the world, being interested in what they're interested in. Solon's really into aviation. So asking him questions, being interested in that, all of that, I think is really helpful, entering into what interests them. Okay. How have you all been feeling since your family got pneumonia? So you might remember Quincy and I both got pneumonia, and Lucille got walking pneumonia. Basically, it just hadn't progressed as far. We're doing pretty good. I will say it was a longer recovery. Quincy bounced back really fast. Darn youth. I tell you what, like I was like, how are you surviving? Like, I don't know. I got it after him and I was like, how are you not feeling worse than you did? Like his symptoms didn't seem as bad as mine. But I was like, I'm sure he was feeling pretty rotten. I'm actually going today to a place that's a functional medicine place, and they're going to do a lot of my blood levels more than what a traditional doctor would do. They're going to test for like my cortisol and my hormones, and they're going to test like my vitamin D and B and all these different levels to just see how I'm doing because I just have a lot of family history with a variety of things. And a doctor a long time ago said, just because you live in the rust belt doesn't mean you have to get rust. And one of the things I like to do is just like preventative care. So I'm going today and we'll see. But I do feel like we're making amends or making like we're on the road to recovery. But thanks for asking. I really appreciate you guys. Okay, next question. Speaking of pneumonia, how do you like the walking pad? So I bought the walking pad right before I got pneumonia. And honestly, you guys, it hasn't gotten as much use as I thought it would. I wish I used it more. And it's because I'm not in a habit. I'll be perfectly honest. It's sitting there and I'm not using it. So I need to. So maybe this is the accountability I need. As far as the one I got, I love it. It's great. It's easy. I just am not using it as much. Okay, last question before we leave today. These were all such good questions. What are some people in your life who have inspired you the most and why? So just another little sneak peek about my book coming out eventually. I can't tell you when or what it looks like, but I'll give you a little sneak peek. I share in the book about my grandparents. My grandparents are probably the most influential people in my life. They're my dad's parents, and they were just really. My grandmother is still living, and we get to see her for Easter, which is so exciting. And my grandfather passed away in 2019, but they're just from their marriage to just they went through so much and just so many pieces of their life. I'll get to share more about it in the book, and you'll get to know them and you'll see why they inspired me so much. But they are the epitome of being the richest people in the world, and not by wealth, but like they just knew what mattered most. They prioritized it. They always made you feel loved and seen and cared for. When my grandma comes now, she's never like, oh, I wish I could see you more. She's just like, I'm so glad you're here. I love that you're here. I mean, she's in the sunset of her life, and where everybody else is grumbling around the table at the retirement home about like missed pills or the fork isn't sharp enough or whatever the complaint of the day is. My grandma's she is sunshine and she is happy and she's grateful. And I just am so inspired by her. And she's always been really simple. She's known her style. It's very simple. She wears the same things. She doesn't have a lot of material goods. Like she really always understood what mattered, and she knew people mattered most, and she made you feel that. And so I'll get a little emotional because they just really have always inspired me. And I'm so grateful that I have people in my life who show me what truly matters most. And they have been through the worst of the worst, having to bury my grandma's had to bury two of her daughters and her husband. And she has every reason to be bitter about life, but she's not. And it's such an inspiration to me. And so I'm so glad that my kids get to know her. And I just hope I can be like her. So, oh my gosh, so emotional, but there you go. And I hope that you'll read the book and get to know them a little bit more. I think you'll fall in love with them as well. So, okay, that's all the questions for today. Some of you asked about what I'm wearing these days. So if you're not part of the email list, you're going to want to be, because I'm going to share those links. Instagram is being kind of funky these days, where if I share links in stories, that my story views like drop substantially. Like, it's crazy. Like thousands of you can see it one day, and then if I post a link, it's like a fifth of you see it the next day, which is just crazy. So I've been trying to share more links in our email. So if you're not a part of the email list, be sure you're doing that. And then also I'll be doing more of like the comment a word, and then it'll send you in a DM. That way you're still getting what you want, but people are still able to see the stories. So, all right, friends, until next week, I hope that you have a great week. Remember, a tiny tweak can make such a huge difference. You don't need a life overhaul. And remember, I'm here for you. You're doing better than you think. I'll see you next week. If you liked this episode, it would mean so much if you'd share it with a friend or leave a quick rating and review so others can find our show. Until next time, you can find me at Simple Purposeful Living on Instagram and Facebook.